Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I don't know about the clip.
Do I need the mic? I'm wearing one.
Yes.
Oh, I need it. Okay.
Well, you're wired, right?
Yeah, I'm wired, so I
you
don't.
don't need this
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Super high tech here. Okay.
The clicker doesn't work on here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm Monica Zent, founder of Foxworthy. Some of you are also clients out there. You probably also know me as founder of Zentlaw. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about collaboration for law departments and why it makes sense. And it's a topic that's near and dear to me. The concept for Foxworthy, those of you who don't know the story, evolved out of, to use an appropriate verb, evolved out of the Zentlaw experience. Working with some of the largest corporate law departments in the world, there was a common theme that I noticed with these law departments, and that was that there was often a lack of collaboration happening within the law department. Sometimes these law departments were very toxic, highly politicized, and work just simply was not getting done. There was an inertia in the law department that kept projects from moving forward, kept people from talking with one another, kept people from collaborating and sharing knowledge in the department. And this created a lot of problems for some of these departments. In some egregious cases, a product launch would be delayed, or something else, a compliance initiative wouldn't come together the way it needed to because you didn't have the right cross-functional teams talking with one another. And so this ultimately led to the creation of Foxworthy as a collaboration platform, because I found that lawyers were not using tools that were out there because tools didn't exist for this. But then it led me to get into something deeper. What was really the cause of this? What was going on with these law departments? And I noticed that a lot of these corporate law departments, and it still continues, lack a culture of collaboration. So that's why I'd like to talk today about why collaboration for in-house law departments makes sense. Why should departments be thinking about collaboration? Because your business executives, whoops, clicker here, okay. Because it's good for your business and it's good for your team. Your business executives are thinking about collaboration. I've been a business person longer than I've been a lawyer. Collaboration is essential to get business done. It's not just talk. This isn't just hot air. There is real research, concrete statistics around the savings, the revenue-driven, what you can achieve through driving revenue, cost savings through collaboration in law departments. And again, more disciplines involved in greater collaboration, you definitely can achieve greater success. You have more innovation that comes about from this collaboration within a law department. Looks like we've got an issue here. So this is a topic, right? Can lawyers really collaborate? A lot of folks feel like lawyers don't collaborate, they're adversarial, they don't work together. That's a misconception. Lawyers actually are expert collaborators. Lawyers tend to like to collaborate, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Why is this? First of all, lawyers are lifelong learners. They enjoy learning and thriving on sort of knowledge sharing, evolving their practice, evolving their substantive knowledge base. If they don't evolve in this way, they tend to leave their place of employment, and this is confirmed through recruiter research. So lawyers are lifelong learners, they're intellectuals, they enjoy collaborating with colleagues. And another example of this is, of course, lawyers are results-oriented. And so it's all about the end game for lawyers. Most lawyers are fairly Machiavellian, so it's all about getting to the end result. Win the case, close the deal, reach the settlement, whatever it may be. And so it's all about getting to that end game. And they're going to do whatever they need to do to get there. And collaboration is a means to an end. Collaboration doesn't make sense just for the sake of itself. Collaboration is a means to an end. And so lawyers recognize that. And the savvy lawyers, like those of you who are here tonight, are people who recognize that and are going to benefit and profit from it. Looks like we've got a slow clicker here. Collaboration, of course, saves time and cost. This has been confirmed through research. There have been reports. McKinsey has done reports on this. Gartner has done studies on this, the Harvard Research Study, International Legal Tech Association, the Purchasing Survey. There have been time and cost savings associated with collaboration in departments and in law firms for that matter. And it makes sense because, of course, you're eliminating redundancies, you're engaging in knowledge transfer. Collaboration also boosts employee morale, so you have people working together. They have this intrinsic sense of self-worth. When you're helping another human being, you have an intrinsic sense of self-worth. And so when you put that in the workplace, you have people associating that with very positive feelings about their workplace. And this was confirmed through the Harvard Law Study. You also have a culture, it looks like we need to go back. That's all right. We have a culture of collaboration which lifts employee engagement. again, if you have a tendency as a lawyer to sort of go into your office and sit in your den, come out for lunch, and then go back to your den, you're not engaging with your colleagues. And there are many law departments that function this way. It's really toxic. People are not talking with each other. So a culture of collaboration lifts employee engagement, gets people talking with one another, and ultimately, it helps you to forge stronger bonds with colleagues. Through collaboration, you build trust, and in that, you create stronger bonds. Let's see here. Also, courtesy of our friends at Google, there's an interesting study there on collaboration boosting profitability. Over half of the senior managers out there confirm that profitability, and the number one factor tied to profitability is collaboration. They see that as a number one barrier. And so your business folks, your lines of business who are your ultimate clients, when you're in-house, they're recognizing whether the law department can collaborate or not. And if the law department can't get it together and collaborate, share knowledge, have people work together, create cross-functional teams, business is getting hampered. Also, Heidi Gardner, a law school lecturer at Harvard Law School, recently published Smart Collaboration. Very interesting book in which she chronicles about 10 years of research on collaboration in the legal industry and why it makes sense. And a lot of the premises that are the subtext for our product, Foxworthy, are borne out and proven in her book about how collaboration saves money and time. Of course, collaboration works on the legal front. And okay, so how do we manifest collaboration in the law department? It's a combination of three factors. You have to have people, process, and technology. There are a couple of examples of collaboration in a law department, of course. You have collaboration with people within the department. You have collaboration among folks in the department and their outside counsel. A lot of times we're now seeing as part of diversity and inclusion initiatives, collaboration among outside counsel. So there's a lot of different flavors of how you can collaborate in the department, but it all has to start with people, like with most things. So how do you get people invested in working together? In a law department, you create a culture of collaboration. It has to start from the top. It has to start with the leadership. And there are many ways to carry this out. One example is sort of an open office configuration, a la Steve Jobs and what he did with Pixar. He had computer scientists and graphic designers and engineers and directors all sitting together on the same floor. And it wasn't done at the time. And so they were able to create these really innovative films as a result of this incredible collaboration taking place. And so the same concept applies with law. You can have open office configurations. You can have leadership summits. You can have retreats or hiring profiles where you hire people with high executive function and a capability to collaborate well. Whatever it may be, but it has to start from the top. Teams are also a great way to cultivate a culture of collaboration. I'm a huge proponent in teams. We've used them successfully for 15 years at Zentlaw. Teams of all different types, reverse mentoring, all different types of configurations to get people working together. And it encourages knowledge sharing. It allows for the free flow of knowledge between colleagues and building trust as well. And then, of course, once you have this culture of collaboration, you have to layer the process on top of it. The process is what's going to give that culture of collaboration its teeth. And so you need to have the process. And again, the process can take many forms. A couple of examples. One could be you're assigning work. How is work coming into the department? What's the intake process? So who is getting that work? Maybe it goes to a couple of folks. Or maybe certain types of matters get handled by a cross-functional team that's already set up. So product launches maybe go to this cross-functional team of 5 or 6 people. Or compliance initiatives go to this cross-functional team. But those are a couple of examples of how you can build process into your intake system in a law department to cultivate this culture of collaboration. Of course, more on the Harvard Law Study, clients, they like it when their teams collaborate. They like it when their law departments collaborate. No surprise there, of course. And you can also use process to manage how work gets doled out to outside counsel. Again, I touched on this earlier. One example with diversity and inclusion initiatives is require non-diverse firms to collaborate with diverse firms, or have different types of outside counsel collaborating so that you're not having to pay one outside counsel to do the same thing that your other outside counsel just did, a couple of months ago. And then, of course, technology. Last but not most importantly is technology. Technology is the great facilitator. You need technology to then carry out and execute the process for this culture of collaboration that you've created. And of course, we have Foxworthy as a social collaboration platform. There are many other technologies, Box for file sharing, you've got DocuSign or Uber Conference for video conferencing. The key is to remember for law departments, there isn't a one-size-fits-all with technology. It's about a toolkit that is designed to help facilitate the culture of collaboration that you've created. And recognizing that will allow you to be able to take advantage of these technologies. I often analogize, legal tech, people in law departments have to think about it like their kitchen appliances, right? You're not going to use your blender to make you a cappuccino. So, we also are not going to use one piece of legal tech for every solution. And so just to wrap it up, collaboration, of course, increases profitability, increases employee engagement, reduces...
Salesforce, please come join us. Can't hear in the back. Okay. Is this being broadcast through everything? All right, so I think we're going to have to share a mic, everyone. Sorry. So really briefly, I did a brief introduction to myself. Why don't we hand it down the line, allow everybody to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about your company and your background, please.
Okay. So my name is Royce Hasuko. I work at Salesforce. I'm a senior operations manager on the legal ops team. I've been with Salesforce for almost 4 years. Prior to that, I was in the public sector, so sort of like went from 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds. So it's been an interesting change in industry. I manage sort of the financial end of things, so e-billing, vendor relationships, law firm engagement, so that end of the process.
Hi everyone, I'm Marika Daggett. I'm with Google. I'm in legal operations there. I've been there for about 4.5 years. My role is centered around everything outside counsel, so from engagement of firms to rate conversations, conflicts, and everything under billing, so billing system and all that stuff.
Hi there, Anthony Blackburn. From Admiral, I've only actually ever been in in-house counsel. I started at Autodesk, and I spend a lot of time doing legal ops.
So Anthony, real quick, how long have you been doing this?
2 years at Autodesk. That's where I interned and then eventually got my offer. And then a year at Admiral in April, so 3 years.
So everybody's been working together about 3 to 4 years in the legal operations space. How has it changed in that time from when you first started out? We'll start with Marika.
So when I first started, my team was probably about a third the size it is now, and it was focused very specifically more on spend management. So doing invoice review, managing our billing system, troubleshooting with our vendors and all of that. We've grown quite a bit since. I'd say at this point, half of our team is focused on looking internally. So process improvement, project management for our department as a whole. And we've made a lot of progress in how we're managing our legal spend now. So it's not just having the data, but doing things with it, creating dashboards, metrics, having tools, and being able to talk back to our firms about having meaningful conversation about rates. How can we actually manage spend? How can we give you feedback about your performance and let you know how our attorneys actually feel about working with you? So it's been collecting a lot of data and then being able to do something with it.
Very interesting. How about you, Royce?
I would say a lot of it is the same as what's happening at Google. We did not have an e-billing system in place, and so that was part of my first task was, hey, welcome aboard, deploy this globally. Nice, yeah. So that was accomplished, and all that is international billing, if anyone's dealt with it, VAT, HST, GST, Asia, yeah, all fun stuff. So we deployed an e-billing system and are now at a point where we have data as well. We really consolidated our vendor relationships, so made that process more efficient and clarified it, just refined it a lot more. So just baby steps.
Okay.
I would say that from a legal ops perspective, a lot of the same problems have persisted, and that would be like to all of the high volume, low risk stuff. You really want to simplify and make as easy and fast as possible. So what I've seen in like the years that I've been in-house counsel is how we address those problems and the different strategies and technology we use to address them.
Thanks, guys. One of the things that I find really interesting that most people don't realize is how large a spend and across how many different external law firms that businesses such as yourself hire and work with. Do you guys mind summing up in round numbers, like maybe some of your legal spend in panel size that you work with? If you can. Okay.
These two are going to be much larger.
Yes,
I
yeah.
don't think I can speak to legal spend
Yeah.
for probably obvious reasons, but we work with many firms. I think there's a lot of talk about some of the advantages to consolidating the number of firms that you work with. And we see that, but I think on the flip side, we also want our attorneys to be empowered to select the counsel that's right for their matter. And then being a global company, you have different issues in different countries that pertain to different types of law, and so there's not going to be a one size fits all. So we've got more firms than I care to manage, but the attorneys are happy with it, so we make it work.
Anything you want to add to that? No. It was a sensitive topic. I went for it anyway. Yeah, go for it.
I totally agree with that. We don't. So when I was at Autodesk, they're like, "Oh, use one of the firms that we have a negotiated rate." Didn't work so well, but now at Adderall, it's like we just want the best in the field. We want a scrappy attorney. We want someone who's not going to overcharge us. I've never been at a firm, but like when I ship something to you, I don't want you to mark up the force majeure clause. I don't want you to correct the grammar. I just want you to get to the issue and nail it. And so we look for the best, and a lot of times that's a firm you never heard of. But yeah, legal spin, I would say we're much smaller in size, but when I saw the number, it shocked me.
Okay. Do you guys view?
I would say.
Okay. Do you guys view your department as a cost center or a saving center for your companies? This is a subjective question.
Yeah.
No. You don't have to tell me whether or not you actually. Yeah.
Or
Legal operations.
so I think I would say we're a cost saving center.
Okay.
We definitely try to get the most bang for our buck.
Yeah.
Whether it be now that we've deployed e-billing software, we can see what we're saving. We train our in-house counsel to use the in-house to the e-billing software, and they are seeing results. So I think we can definitely demonstrate our worth and value.
Yeah, I think legal is obviously a cost center, and legal ops tries to do what we can to showcase our value and how we're bringing that down, and a lot of that is through tools and technology. I mean, it's a huge line item, and so folks want to dig into it, but when they see the work that we've done to bring it down as best we can, they're pretty impressed with how we're able to do that with the size of our team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As an attorney, I understand that I'm expensive for the company, but at the same time, I'm trying to implement everything I can to, automate as much as possible.
Yeah. And I think you guys have raised some really interesting issues on the idea of a cost center, and that is you're trying to manage all of the inputs. And it sounds to me like your inputs are both internal and external. Marika, you mentioned training your in-house counsel, for example. How much of your job is training people to work efficiently or at least measure themselves efficiently?
Was that Marika?
I could be to anyone. Yeah.
So luckily, the other side of my team is more responsible for answering that question and looking internally and how our attorneys are doing and what their bandwidth looks like. I think, as much as possible, we want to be really smart about how we're allocating work. What makes sense to go external versus what can we handle internal, and is that the right use of their time? So I think it is kind of a delicate balance.
Okay. You guys also talked about building dashboards. Are you using custom-built tools for that, or trying to find kind of off-the-shelf tools like Salesforce's reporting to do that type of measurement and display for yourselves?
So for us, I think one of our strongest tools that we brought out in the last couple of years really is this outside counsel dashboard. So within our billing system, there is tons of valuable data. on, your top firms, what spend looks like, what the trend looks like, spend per matter, spend per practice group, every kind of breakdown you can get. But sitting in the billing system, it's not that valuable. And we didn't find that we were able to use tools within the billing system itself to derive that valuable information. So we worked with our kind of IT partners within Google to develop a dashboard that does just that, that creates that visualization. And so anyone can go straight there and see, what do my matters look like? What does my spend look like? What about everyone that's in my reporting chain? And so that was a tool that I think we launched maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point, and has been really, really valuable for anyone to get a quick snapshot of their usage of outside counsel.
Yeah, we have a couple different tools that we use for reporting and dashboarding. We use Simple Legal. Shout out to Jack. And then we also just implemented Zendesk, and that was really, we wanted more information around, who's doing what, how many matters are getting solved, what are the matters, and how long it's taking us, because, as in-house counsel, we're always hit with, it takes so long working with legal. And so we really wanted some numbers around that, and we're finding out that, it's not really legal's turnaround time in most cases. But it still gets, blamed on us.
Yep.
So not to tout our product, I did not come here for that. Salesforce happens to have a dashboard reporting tool called Wave. And so we actually populate that with our spend data for outside counsel, and our in-house counsel can then sort on the fly by quarter, by year, by any time period that we dictate, that we've had loaded in the system. So it's a very flexible tool, and it's a mobile app. So sorry to sound like a sales person, but it's available on all of our leadership team members' phones, so they have it at their fingertips.
So I think it's interesting, though, that you guys are putting together different tools to make these things work, right? We've heard about Simple Legal. We actually have a legal budget resource management platform over here, Digitory, that's looking at kind of before the spend planning. But it seems like this is really kind of a new and nascent space. Are you guys participating with other in-house counsel and legal operations teams through organizations like Cloak or the Association of In-House Counsel and their legal management team? Where are you learning more about your roles?
So my manager, Mary Carroll, is actually one of the founding members of Clock, and I think that it's a relatively new organization, but I think he's been really, really powerful. I've been to a couple meetings and have learned a lot and met a lot of peers in this space. And I think that has been really, really helpful to see what are other similar companies doing, what tools are they using, what are their concerns, what are they trying to solve for. There was a big conference last year, it was their first conference, and I've been to many conferences at this point, and I think that had the most relevant content. So I think Clock is a fantastic organization for anyone who's in the legal operations field.
I'm sorry, could you tell us what the acronym means? I forgot to say that.
Yeah, Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. I'm pretty sure anyone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I knew that was a good Google question. Oh.
So Salesforce is also a member of the Clock. I think they've got different regional groups that meet around the country. Obviously, we're a member of the Bay Area group. There's also one in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm based, and the Association of Corporate Counsel also has a legal operations group. So we're lucky enough to be members of both.
And how are you guys starting to use this information to reach out to external counsel? So do we have any members of law firms here? All right, we'll just skip that topic. All right. Where are you starting to look for additional tools that you wish you had as part of legal operations?
I can start. So again, I'm trying to automate a large part of my job so I can focus on other things. So right now we've been looking at a couple vendors that do AI, and so I think one of them is called Spoke, and basically the idea is that it integrates with Slack, which is our primary communication method. If you don't know what Slack is, it's sort of a combination between email and instant message with different channels, and you can follow threads, and that's where I spend most of my day. So Spoke would integrate with that, and if someone asks a question in the legal channel, it gradually learns and it can automate a response back for you, which would be great for me.
I think this is a pretty booming field right now. There's this huge legal technology conference called Legal Tech. I think this year they rebranded it as Legal Week. And they're big ones in New York City. They also have one in San Francisco. I just attended one in New York City a few weeks back, and it's actually overwhelming with the number of vendors that exist there and all the sorts of solutions and products that they have for your needs. So there are tons of options. I think it's really a process of figuring out what makes sense for your business. What are you looking for? What are the problems you're trying to solve? And then kind of navigating through everything that's out there and figuring out, does this fit what I need?
I would agree as well. It's just, there's a ton of new companies and existing ones that are now altering their practices to accommodate this field of legal operations. So it's pretty amazing.
So we seem to be a very tech-focused crowd. What can a tech company do to get positive attention from you, as opposed to a spam email or sending chocolates to your office? Is there something that you've seen in the past that has led you to investigate further or initiate a conversation that they might emulate?
I mean, I welcome chocolates all the time, anytime. I think the product has to speak for itself. I get lots of spam emails all the time, and I will give them all, immediate attention just to see, is this something I'm interested in? Do we already have a product that answers this question? And if I'm not impressed off the bat, it's kind of easy to just disregard that email because I know there are tons of vendors and I'm getting these emails all the time. So I don't know that there's a tip to really sell other than have a great product, and that should speak for itself.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The product has to speak for itself, and when I search for vendors, I'm usually looking up a particular problem. And I mean, I guess I found out about Ironclad reading the New Yorker of all places, which you don't really think about finding legal tech advice from the New Yorker, but and so then I requested a demo. They look cool.
Ironclad is the contract automation tool out of Y Combinator. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And not only contract automation, but I think they're trying to do start to finish automation. I sort of bucketed 3 categories. There's automation or generation, there's work in product, and then there's like the repository or the graveyard. I've driven it on a board a lot of times for a lot of different vendors. And really what I'm looking for is a solution, and not to get too much into contracts management, but a solution that goes from start to finish and also incorporates the workflow and integrates with all the tools that I'm already using, which seems to be a hard problem, which is why the problem still exists. But I guess to the question, I guess I don't know if there's anything.
So let's go to the flip side. You mentioned integration and things that you already use. What are some tools that your company uses that you wish had better inputs into your own dream system? So email, document depositories, procurement. These are all things that you guys should have a finger in at some point. Are they integrating internally, or is this a problem that still needs to be solved? I totally stumped them. No.
Go ahead.
I would say, so I guess the question is, are tools integrating with the business?
With the business,
or
yeah.
with each other?
I would say with the business, but we can start there and go to with each other after.
Okay, so we went to the business. So their primary method of communication was Slack. So we're like, okay, legal's going to be in Slack, and we're going hard.
Okay.
And that's sort of where we landed on that. And then of course email is always pretty standard. But yeah, and then the next question, each other, we want all of our tools to speak together and integrate, because if you throw up one little barrier, it becomes, you know, people don't break habits very easily, and they don't adopt new processes.
Yeah, we struggle with that quite a bit. We've got, and I think part of this is it's a large company problem. You've got tons of different teams that are responsible for different things. So we have tons of tools, databases, systems, and they don't all speak. And so there's an element of redundancy, and it's frustrating. You feel like you've already supplied the information in this system. Why do you need to do it again here? It is a huge problem. I think everyone says in their dream world, there's one tool, one system that does everything, and that's just not the reality today. So the more flexible systems and tools are when you bring them on board to be able to integrate, certainly the better.
I think one caveat to that, I would agree. I think one caveat though is to really consider whether you want integration or just communication between your systems, because integration would create data loops back and forth. Is that, do you want data going back and forth? Do you want data going one way? Do you just, you know, so I think that is a huge consideration, because I think it would be nice if some of our other tools did integrate. That being said, I think there's a good reason that some of them do not.
Oh, okay.
So.
Interesting. So this is a highly technical issue. How did you develop an understanding of it outside of your legal knowledge when you started these roles? Oh. She has something to add to this.
Drinking from the fire hose, is that an answer?
Yeah.
You're just kind of, you know, thrown to the wolves. And we had been looking for a solution, for example, for our e-billing system. One was found, and after it's selected, you want immediate implementation, or as quickly, you want to be able to get data as quickly as possible. So from there, I think, at least for me, with e-billing systems and the clock and ACC legal ops, you learn about all these issues that arise kind of based on the problems that you encounter at work. And so kind of go from there.
Well, that's like Anthony's comment of what you're searching for. You're searching for a solution. Marika?
I mentioned big company problems. There's also big company perks. We've got kind of an IT team that supports with that piece to really speak the technical language. So fortunately, I haven't had to learn it. And we partner really closely together, where I can provide more of the end user perspective. What does our legal team need? What's actually helpful? And they can speak all the technical jargon to get it done.
Yeah, I guess sort of going off both of those, drinking from the fire hose, and then I started at a tech company, but it was a big tech company with a very old legal department, old in structure, not age, and being like a young attorney there, the VP was like, okay, go solve these problems. You must be a young millennial, go do it. Okay, so that's sort of how I got my start in the legal ops world. So just really just trying to solve problems.
You bring up age. This is a young panel. This seems to be a young industry.
Okay.
Take the compliment.
Take
the compliment.
Right.
Are you finding that this is a generational approach to the problem of collaboration between in-house and external counsel, or is it just technology imposing itself in there, or is it a mix of those?
So I think people put too much value on the whole generational thing. It really sort of goes to what Monica was saying. Lawyers are continual learners, and the ones that are actually continual learners will be out there trying to figure out how to become more efficient and adopt different strategies to contracting or whatever their job is. So I don't think it's as much of a generational thing as the 13 points of whatever BuzzFeed list you're reading might allow you to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's an age thing so much as, we are a tech company, so we're going to care about technology and using it efficiently in a way that makes sense to make everyone's jobs easier and all of that. And I think there might be just kind of a difference in how law firms approach that. They're not as tech savvy as we are, and that's sort of just the reality. And I don't think it's so much of an age gap, but just our perspective on these things.
I think from our perspective, it's trying to use our resources wisely. So is there a more efficient and effective way to spend our money on outside counsel and other vendors like that? So I think that's what's driving us to look at options.
Are you finding, you've mentioned that tech is not necessarily a focus of law firms. Are you finding that to be a barrier where your systems just stop either at the law firm or the courthouse and can't pierce those barriers in terms of syncing data or collecting adequate inputs?
For Google specifically, I mean, something we always want to encourage is the use of Google products. Makes sense. If we can communicate with Google Docs or Google Sheets, that's certainly our preference over other forms. And that is a struggle. You know, they're used to using Outlook and they're used to using Excel and PDFing everything. And we try to kind of push them more towards what we prefer, but we also understand, I mean, we're not going to force it. That's kind of their organic method of working, and we are kind of just accommodating to that.
Okay.
I think for us, the larger struggle is to have law firms consider alternative billing arrangements. Rather than the technology, which may or may not be at the same level and the systems they're in, I think it's how can this be a win-win situation? How can you get paid? How can we get the maximum quality and quantity of service? And how can we repeat that? You know, how do we negotiate those types of arrangements and make it an optimal relationship?
Alternative fee arrangements are a preference? Show of hands? No. Okay.
Ones that make sense.
Ones that make sense,
So
okay.
alternative meaning, I'm sorry, so to clarify, just
Yeah.
maybe not just your straight billable hour. You know, I worked X number of hours on Y matter, I charge you that multiplier. Perhaps there are some iterative functions that can be, that can benefit from some more efficient billing, or you know, some time savings that can be taken into account in that specific task or group of tasks. You know, those types of considerations, I think, are a new thought process in the traditional legal law firm billing model, you know, business model. So,
Are you finding law firms are coming to you with budget proposals in hand in order to kind of live up to that standard?
I think law firms are very receptive to the idea of alternative fee arrangements. I mean, to her comment earlier, the ideal situation is a win-win on both sides. We're not trying to come out saying, yeah, we really screwed them in this case and we got this great deal. That's certainly not the case. I think it just makes sense. Let's come up with a pricing structure for the work that we're asking for, and we're not paying for the effort, but we're paying for something that's more results oriented. We found that firms are incredibly receptive. They say, let's have this conversation, let's make this happen. And if anything, there's a little more hesitancy from our attorneys because there's a risk. They're very familiar with the hourly model. They came from law firms. They know how it works. That's kind of a safe route to take. And an AFA is seen as a risk. Particularly if we haven't done any analysis and we don't have that data to support what perhaps the firm is suggesting as an AFA, it's really hard to agree to it and say, yeah, that's a better model for this. But as she was saying, if it's right, we absolutely want to do it. It makes sense. It's easier operationally. No one wants to comb through hundreds of line items that say, drafted this, called this person. It is not a valuable use of anyone's time. And if it's more, you delivered what we've asked you to do, and this is a fair price for that, it just makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, so, I mean, from my perspective, it's just really hard to predict. I love the idea of having an alternative fee method, but in December, everything was going smoothly. All of a sudden we lost 2 colleagues, and I didn't realize, we would be drowning the next month, and so we like started shipping more and more stuff out, and there's so many things like that you don't plan for. So we're just a small and flexible team, and so yeah, I guess I agree with both of them. If there's a structure that makes sense, we'll listen to anything.
Are you open to bringing in non-law firm legal services to help control legal spend? And what are some examples of things that you have looked at as a possibility in the past?
Yeah, that's something that we do quite a bit. Secondments is a great example, and particularly in the case of a leave, some sort of backfill, we turn to alternative service providers to bring on temporary support for a defined amount of time, and it's worked really, really well. And a lot of it is work that previously would have gone to outside counsel, and I mean, the savings are there. It's very clear. It just makes sense, and it's a very strong business relationship that we have with these providers.
I think we've used non-law firms to look at reviewing contracts and the terms therein, and maybe updating our contract management system. So versus your traditional, maybe engaging a law firm to do that, which would be really expensive. They do use a combination of paralegals, non-legal professionals, and an attorney maybe managing that project. So we've done that before. We're looking at different options around, expediting contract review, possibly reviewing invoices. So we're looking at different options.
Yeah, we have a vendor that does some sort of low risk tasks, and they're non-attorneys. And then also we've used a couple vendors that do simple translations that may be for a legal project that aren't, from a law firm, because translations from law firms can be quite expensive.
Have any of the law firm that are on your panel of law firm vendors brought in a third party as part of their proposals to you guys, like a contract review place or something? And are they partnering with outside parties to bring value to you as in-house counsel?
Not that I know of.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, I've been reading about this in England, so I was hoping to see something like that here.
Yeah, we sometimes have our law firms engage third-party providers for very specific things, and usually it's small dollar work, so
Okay.
it's not at all problematic. And in fact, it's preferred in some cases, because then we don't need to go through the extensive effort of onboarding that vendor directly with us. And we do have preferred providers. He referenced translation. That's something that we certainly utilize. And in some cases, our firm, particularly if it's non-US, they might want to partner with someone local, and it's just easier and maybe even cheaper. And we certainly allow that just because operationally it makes sense.
Okay. So one of the interesting things we've seen in the law firm space since 2008 is a decreased focus on hiring, but we have seen increased hiring and a shift of manpower into in-house counsel. Are your legal departments still growing? Do you see that continuing, or do you see it more shifting towards investment in technology? Difficult question. No.
I think for us it's both. Our
Okay.
team is still growing, but we are definitely looking at investing in technology, because at some point we want to make sure that whatever ratio we have, attorney to sales, professionals, that type of thing, it is sustainable. And so yeah, I think both.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to her comment, a lot of the size of our team is dependent on what's happening with the larger business and making sure that there's a sustainable ratio. If we're talking about, product counseling attorneys, well, did we just launch a bunch of new products and we don't have attorneys to support that? So it certainly is a balance of that, and then just general issues happening. Do we have folks on board to support that?
So the question, decrease in law firm hiring, but
Yeah, we're
increase
looking
in
at
in-house?
headcount changes, and it seems to be shifting towards in-house. Is that the case at AdRoll or other in-house departments that you know of?
So I think a large part of being in-house counsel is understanding the product and the business, and understanding the business tolerance for risk. So that may sort of, for me, I think it makes much more sense for us to get another headcount for a commercial role than sending out our overflow contracts and sort of paying a premium on those.
Okay. Are you guys tracking productivity in any way in your in-house department and then comparing that against an hourly billing cost as a part of your headcount measurements?
I guess we just implemented Zendesk, so we're trying to.
Okay. It's an interesting use case for Zendesk.
Yeah, they have an insight function, which can tell you like the amount of touches you have on a certain issue, the amount of time you spent on it, and then the amount of time it took you to reply to it in the first place.
Okay.
I think any sort of analysis on that would be used more to determine, do we need more heads and how many, as opposed to, looking at the productivity of each individual. I think to some extent that might be performed, but it's not that direct.
Okay, so it's not like a 6-minute measurement.
Yeah, people don't want to track their time anymore.
No.
I think that's why they left the lights.
So when it comes to investment in technologies, what is the one tool you guys are using every day? Gmail?
That seems like
A good answer, yeah.
For me, in my role, managing a lot of outside counsel spend is really living in our billing system.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say Salesforce and Gmail,
Oh,
and then also Slack.
Slack.
I would agree with Marika. It's our e-billing system.
Very interesting. So I'm going to shift to legal education. Are you guys partnering your legal departments with any legal education providers to try and build legal operations as kind of a career choice for younger attorneys, or at least try to get them to train people that will come to you a little more prepared in your hiring process?
I don't know if we're doing quite that, but we just, so we work closely with the policy department, and this girl went to another company, but she was 10 out of 10. Brilliant, amazing, and so after about a year of her being at another company, we're like, hey, come work with us. We'll make it a legal ops role, and we're really excited because she's interested in project management and sort of efficiencies, and so knowing how bright she is, we're really excited to have her start. So I don't know if we're pairing with companies to educate people on the matter, but we're definitely maybe as a team trying to be open and flexible, hiring non-attorney / non-paralegals for traditionally roles that may have barriers like that.
Would a project management professional, like a PMP, be one of the designations you're looking at?
Yeah, I think project management becomes more and more important in the in-house role. We have a lot of legal-led type projects, and we have like an operations efficiency team, but they're not going to drive all of our projects forward that we need, driven forward. So at some point, someone in the team has to step up and like take home a couple projects. And so where you used to see maybe this sitting on the ivory tower, like swirling squash, I'm like, I'll advise the business, but I won't do anything. That might be an unfair characterization, but more and more you're seeing where the legal team is driving projects and being a project manager in different situations.
I think internally we're doing a lot to show our legal ops professionals within Google that there is a career path in defining that job ladder. When I started 4.5 years ago and I was interviewing for this role, I didn't know what it was. And I remember Googling it, not really even finding results of what is legal operations. And it's very, very different today. So it's evolved quite dramatically in just a few years. And I think, I haven't been paid by Clock, but I think Clock has done a really, really great job of highlighting this profession and bringing more attention to it, and therefore kind of standardizing some of what this role requires and compensation, all of that stuff, which I think is very necessary when you're talking about a you know, a very tiny kind of subset of this space.
Okay.
I think we are not currently overtly partnering with folks, but the composition of our team is such that so the earlier talk was about collaboration within in-house legal. One of our corporate cultural values is collaboration within the company, and so we're constantly trying to collaborate, and so that extends beyond just our team, sort of how we try and work with other partners, and whether it's through the clock, because Marika and I've connected actually before this, before the clock.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think it's that spirit of collaboration amongst the profession that's very it's very encouraging. I happen to be an attorney, but I just get to play one on TV. So that perspective has been very helpful in moving things forward in a legal operations role. That being said, I think it's going to be a challenge to partner and to encourage folks into legal operations if they want to practice law in a traditional fashion. I think they're slightly different tracks.
They're kind of parallel tracks, maybe.
Yeah, I don't. It's too new of a
Divergent
field. I'm not
tracks?
Sure,
Yeah.
it's a different track. We'll
Okay.
just put it that way. And so, the partnership I think is definitely would be a great idea, but at least on our end hasn't come to fruition yet.
What's one non-traditional skill then, with traditional being the practice of law skills, that you're utilizing to the benefit of your company? Math, spreadsheets, project management, any of those?
So I used to work in the public sector and managed operations unbeknownst to me for lots of different functions. So I've done IT project management, I've done budgeting, I've done business continuity, disaster recovery, I've done worked with elected officials and whatnot. So a lot of that has actually all contributed
Carries over, yeah.
To how to make sense of legal issues, whether they be substantive legal issues or vendor-related issues and whatnot. So I would say sort of any experience therein, you can pull from to make it applicable to legal ops.
I guess I would say project management again. It's hard. You can't really ship that out. You can't like you can a contract or something, or a translation or litigation or something like that. But then it becomes like, does it actually take an attorney to do this project management? Even if it is from a legal perspective, that is sort of a question that I spend a lot of time thinking of, because I spend a lot of my time doing project management. But then also I want to only be doing stuff that is worth, expensive attorney. I'm a cost center. So yeah, I guess I would say project management.
Okay.
I think communication is super important, and knowing how to tailor your communication for your audience, particularly if you're, communicating with a relationship partner at a law firm versus their billing coordinator versus your VP or your director. It's very different, and I think legal people are used to reading, long memos, and they don't want to see that. So get succinct, get to the point. What exactly are you trying to communicate? What is the action required of them? That has been a big learning lesson for me in the last couple of years, and how to say what I want to say and make sure that they're receiving it that way and they're responding the way that I need them to.
Can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah.
So when you're communicating with a law firm, do you tend to have a solitary point of contact with that law firm?
Yeah, so for most of our firms, we have a relationship contact, and then we also have a billing contact, and you use them for very different purposes.
Okay. Have you had to deal with anybody laterally who was a contact before? So suddenly you have to relearn the law firm or build a new relationship with a new law firm?
Yeah, that happens, and I think, part of ops is inserting yourself into the conversation when a lot of the conversation is happening between the firm and maybe their attorney contact at your company, and they might have a different contact than you have, and people are switching firms all the time, so it's really hard to keep tabs on that. We try to keep that information in the system, but it's constantly moving.
Royce, you're nodding a lot.
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
Oh, no, I'm just agreeing. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anthony, do you have anything on managing the shifting partner landscape?
Not really.
Huh.
We have our preferred attorneys, and then I don't know if it shifts, it shifts.
Okay. So we've seen that a lot of career progression goes from go to a law firm and then go in-house. This is my last question. Do you guys ever see yourself leaving the corporate environment and going back to a law firm?
So I skipped the law firm.
Traditional method.
Traditional, yeah.
No.
No. Never, ever, will I ever.
No. Just a no. Yeah.
Zero desire.
Okay. So it's better on the outside or being inside for in-house, I guess is the best way to phrase it. And I think that's where we'll wrap it up tonight. I want to thank our panelists. So Anthony, Marika, Royce, thank you. Legal operations is a huge environment. There's still so much we haven't touched on. Oh, I've got Mary. Questions. Yeah, that's where I was going. So is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you would like to ask the panel? So Alicia up front.
Yeah, I was really interested in when you were touching on project management, because it seemed that there was a lot of nodding and that it seemed to transport from just the technology. There was something else there. So I was curious if you guys are like hiring for project management, or if you're looking at technology for specifically project management rather than communications or billing.
So I'll repeat the question for the recording. How are you implementing project management? Is it through technology, managers, a combination of the two?
So I think I mentioned the breakdown of my team is kind of half looking externally, half looking internally. I think the project management piece is a little more on the internal focus, and a lot of the folks on that team are former consultant types, and that is what they do. And it makes a lot of sense. Our attorneys are very, very smart, but they're very, very good at lawyering. And sometimes they need someone with a project management experience to apply structure and really define what is the problem, what is our course of action, what are we hoping to achieve. And that's a relatively new service that we've been providing, and people are elated that someone's solving that problem for them, and they have a lot of confidence that it's going to get done.
Yeah, so we have an operations department within our company, and that's what they do is project management. But also our training department trains all the other, colleagues that may not be in ops, how to be a project manager when, you're just a lawyer. And we are using different tools for project management. We're going to start using Trello pretty soon. And yes, to your other question, we are hiring for it. We value the skill, and so we just hired a lady, as I mentioned, in a role that's legal ops and project manager is her official title.
I think for one of the things I wanted to point out is the size of the legal ops teams, and that varies, and I think that drives what we're hiring for. So our team is 4 people for a law department of close to a couple hundred.
Wow.
So that means different things in terms of what we get headcount for and what we hire for. So it just so happened that I had a bunch of project management experience and happened to have the legal background and whatnot. I think if our team was structured a little differently, we may it might have been possible to hire just a project manager, and then because Google's team I know is a lot bigger than ours. We've compared notes in the past. So I think that drives some of what we can hire for and what we look for is how many headcount do you have?
Do you have anything to add, Marika?
I think that's it. I mean,
Okay.
to her point, I think when you're starting out in legal operations, it makes sense to first focus on billing and managing outside counsel. And as you grow and as you have the capacity, then you start to kind of look internally and figure out what can we do differently, how can we, strike the right balance between internal focus and external.
Thank you. So we had a question up here. Yes.
So my question was, what processes or tools do you guys have in place to manage your legal team to ensure that you guys are involved in every step of the process when it comes to selecting counsel, when it comes to maybe negotiating rates or having that conversation, how do you guys input yourselves or create processes to ensure that you guys are kind of a part of the decision to move forward?
So for the recording, the question is, how does legal operations pair itself with the in-house counsel when it comes to making decisions and purchases and strategy choices? Is that a good rephrase? Excellent.
So part of it is in our engagement letter with firms, we include in the billing guidelines, you need to work with legal operations on any rate negotiations, et cetera. A lot of times they still go to their primary contact, which is the attorney. And the attorney doesn't want to do that. That's the last thing they care about, so they're quick to forward it on. So, good or bad, it comes to us no matter what. So for that specifically, we're always kind of inserted into the workflow. With respect to hiring new firms, I think I mentioned this earlier, but we like to give folks the ability to kind of determine who it is that they should work with. We need to be involved in the process in terms of setting them up and getting them in our billing system and agreeing to our terms and all of that. But we will provide guidance when asked. If they say, hey, who do you know that specializes in X, Y, and Z and is based in this country, we'll do that research and we'll find that answer for them. But we also kind of let them make the decision to some extent.
So we don't really have a legal ops department. We're a 3-person team, formerly 5. So I guess engagement letters, and if I want to use a different counsel, it just still goes through the regular procurement process. So finance eventually has to approve it, and I'm the only attorney dealing with contracts, so I'll probably not review it and just approve it. And so I guess I don't have any really good answer to your question.
I think on our end, we have a process in place. There are always exceptions to the process, just like anything in legal. So, it depends on the speed of the transaction, the priority, and whatnot. So we do have a process. We try and insert ourselves at the very beginning of the engagement and push folks toward that goal. Again, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes when it doesn't happen, it's for a very good reason based on the confidentiality, the nature of the project, or, like I said, the speed of the transaction.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? We've got one from the Foxworthy table.
Well, I'm sure you guys see yourselves as leaders in the legal department perspective. You're very forward-thinking companies. And where do you see legal operations going in the future? And where do you think there may be voids that need to be filled?
So where will legal operations go in the future?
I think it is a great industry that just started. My best friend actually started LawPal back in like 2011. It's now defunct. Attorneys are notorious at being slow adopters, and as that shifts, and as attorneys start adopting more and more technology, things are going to shift. The industry is going to grow. There's a lot of room for growth. There's a lot of need. There's still a lot of hard problems in this industry. Contract management, in my opinion, is one of them.
Nope.
And also, like I mentioned earlier, I think AI could help a bit with that.
Because we are in a support function, I think there's a lot of trust building that needs to happen, and to have your attorneys feel like you are the go-to for something and you are the expert in this and that they can turn to you for that. A lot of what we do or have done has been kind of reactive. We absolutely need a billing system. We have to troubleshoot these issues that come up. I think, very soon we're going to hit a point where we're coming to them and saying, hey, how about this? What do you think about this? What about this tool? Should we create it in-house? Should we buy it? Can we help you in this way? And being able to identify those things as opposed to just responding to it later.
I guess from my perspective, I would hope that legal operations would somehow infiltrate a law firm, because part of legal operations is understanding the business, and I think that is a challenge for a lot of law firms that have a business model that's stood the test of time for a long time, and with limited scrutiny. And now there are so many software systems that enable us to increase that level of scrutiny and really ask the question, why? And I think that's one of the great things about operations roles, legal or otherwise. You often get to ask the question why, and then think about the answer and ask why again. You know, I think that it would really be innovative on the part of law firms to really think about how can we develop win-win fee proposals so that our client doesn't have to take on that role of figuring out our business and then trying to feed it back to us in a way that makes sense to us. You know, I think that would be a great arrangement.
Thank you. Any other questions for our panelists? You will not get a collection like this every day, so this is a great opportunity. Yes?
So you mentioned your contract management. So what is the biggest pain point today with contract management?
So contract management is sort of a hard problem because you look for vendors, Apttus being one. We tried implementing that at Autodesk. It connects with Salesforce. It's a big one, but it took 6 or more months to implement an NDA from the generation perspective, and then you have to roll that out and train the lawyers and how to like connect and pull that. It's like that became almost impossible. So yeah, I see the pain points are basically there's 3 big buckets, like I said earlier, that the contract management needs to do. Each company comes with their own different sets of workflows and processes and how they escalate different issues. And so ideally, this magic solution does that for every company, but then your contract management providers ends up being like a custom dev shop, and that's not a profitable business. So becoming a sustainable business and being like as a contract manager, that's still a hard problem, I think, that no one's solved. That answer?
You guys mind if I jump in on that? Because I'm feeling that pain lately too. Okay. One of the things that I've noticed is there's not a single type of contract that your company needs. So there's like sales contracts that need to follow a certain process. But then there are also IP rights, for example, that are technically contracts that aren't being tracked in a fashion like a contract, and the tools can't handle that. And so taking all the different agreements that your company is making, whether it's sales related, IP related, things like that, and pulling them into one area of review is incredibly difficult. I just haven't seen a tool to do that yet. There is a relatively good tool for templated contracts based out of here. It's called Concord. I believe they're an Evolve Law member.
Yes, we have lots of them, so.
Yes, they are. And so if you are looking for a SaaS contract management product, they're a really decent one that works well, and I can just say that from personal use. Okay. Any other questions? Looks like Mary's ready to hand it off. All right.
I wanted to thank our panel, an amazing The reason that we video this is we actually have people who go on and they watch these, and we do a transcript from the whole thing, and then we'll do some blogs and things like that. The advice that you gave not only to other people in legal ops, and shout out to Clock, we really like them, they helped put together this panel. The people that are legal technologists and legal tech companies go through these panels to find the pain points and to hear, and so it's very interesting. And Legal Tech Toolkit is where you can find contract management and all kinds of other wonderful members on our site. So thank you all very much, and we're going to bring up Nathan to close it, and then I don't think there's any more wine left, actually.
There's beer. There's free beer.
There's free beer. There's a little bit of wine, or there's no wine now. So Nathan, and I think, Laura, are you going to do the clicking? I'm not sure it's going to work. If it doesn't work.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I know that I'm between you and apparently not wine, but the beer and the rest of the food. So we've got 5 minutes. We're gonna roll through this pretty quickly. My name is Nathan. I'm the CEO of Simple Legal. We are a spend management and e-billing provider here to add roles for one of our customers. And so my talk today is this idea that there's not legal tech, right? There's only tech. This is something that's, it's kind of all been done before, right? We just call it marketing tech or sales tech, or even in HR now you have providers and benefits. And so legal tech is really just a retooling of all of those things. So when you look around the table at the other leaders in your companies, they're already using tools that do the kinds of things that you'd be looking for, right? If you look at what we do on the spend management, matter management, that's just CRM, right? Salesforce already handles that. When you look at maybe technology-assisted document review, this is just how Netflix helps you watch the right movies, or Amazon helps you find the right things to buy, and you can even get into e-discovery, which is really just search, right? I mean, this is like Google does search. So all of these things that we call legal tech, these are really just applications of existing technology. So what I want to do now is say, okay, well, if we stop there, it'd be sort of a boring talk. But if we believe that these things are just re-implementations of existing technologies, these are also paths that other departments have already walked, right? So if we think about how has the VP of marketing, how has that job changed? How has HR, how has that job changed? I think what we can do is take that and give ourselves a little bit of a framework for thinking about how does our world change? How does the legal department change? So a GC of one of our larger customers told me that marketers think in Excel and lawyers think in Word, right? So one of the key components of that is other job functions are highly quantitative, right? If you ask the head of marketing, how's business? They're going to tell you about ad roll click-through rates. They're going to tell you about week over week, month over month, funnel conversion rates, cost per click, cost of customer acquisition. If you ask even the head of HR, which you might not think of necessarily as being this quantitative role, they're going to tell you about turnover rates. They're going to tell you about the cost to attract and retain employees. All these other job functions are highly, highly quantitative. Within legal, you have a little bit of a different scenario. You have very much outlier-driven models, right, where for one litigation could really blow your legal budget out of the water. So you might want to understand what are my top 10 matters that I'm working on. But the job function itself is not necessarily connected as tightly as, say, marketing or sales with a much more quantitative role. I think that's what legal operations can really bring to the table, is that quantitative approach. And if we think about how those job functions have changed, if you're the VP of marketing, you're probably not putting together landing pages, right? But you probably understand the technology stack that you have, right? If you go try to get a VP of marketing role and you can't speak to the technology stack, you will not get that VP of marketing job function, right? So we can, if we believe that these legal technologies are really re-implementations of existing technologies, and if we believe that this change that has come to these other departments is coming here, we kind of have maybe two ways to think about this. One is either that legal is so special and so different that we can avoid the quantitative approach, right? And that really legal is also so different that technology, which is going to enable the quantitative view of our world, we're just immune from that, right? Change is going to come, but not to our world. Or we can look at that and think, okay, change is going to come. There are financial pressures that are forcing us to change how we think. They're forcing us to be more quantitative. And we can see that by talking to our colleagues in marketing, in sales, in HR, and find out how has that quantitative approach changed their approach to their job and their world, and start to draw parallels to see how will that change ours. So that's the quick short version of it. Back to the food and the networking.
The other thing I wanted to do is, again, thank Cleo and thank WeWork and everyone who's involved, but we also have Darwin Talks in our podcast, so I would invite Monica and Nathan to record what they said tonight, and we'll put it up on our podcast channel. And if you're interested in some of our other members, most of them do have podcasts. So thank you all for coming, and go around and see the different technologies and finish the food, please.